Welcome back, 12. Ja Morant's first game after serving a 25-game suspension happens in New Orleans against Zion and the Pelicans first quarter. Ja Morant looked like he been hooping somewhere. Beautiful buckets, beautiful dimes up top to Jaren Jackson. Boy, has Memphis missed his energy, and they missed a lot of other things that he did in his basketball game. More on Ja in a second. But first things first, let's show love to Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum. It's B.I. throwing it down. Ingram pulling up, nailing the deuce. New Orleans goes on a crazy 26-2 run. McCollum and Ingram spearheading a 19-point lead at the half. But you know 12 coming. Ja Morant picking up where he left off last season for the Grizzlies. Just like that, Memphis has cut a double-digit lead down to 9 behind Ja. Other end. Remember me, I was number 1 in the 2019 draft. It's Zion Williamson with the old alley-oop. Not to be outdone by the guy that went number 2. It's Mr. Morant, spitted, wetted, and Dylan. The raw emotion, I'm back, says Ja. Zion says, I'm here too. Mr. Williamson goes up top and gets it. Now we got a game. Zion had 13. Memphis down by 6. It's you-know-who. Ja, 12 coming. Other end, Pelicans could really use a score to stop the Grizzlies' momentum, and B.I. does just that. Nearly carries the basketball, but pulls off a sick move on Desmond Bane. Ingram had 34 points. Pelicans back up by 6. Jaren Jackson cuts that lead in half with a 3. Now we're tied at 111 with a minute to go. Who you gonna call on? It's Ja, giving the Grizzlies the 2-point lead, but the Pelicans get that thing out quickly, and Herb Jones ties this game back up at 113. Last chance for Memphis. 6 seconds to go. Who you gonna call on? Call 12. Ja Morant calls game at the buzzer. In his first game all year, he leads the Memphis Grizzlies back from a 24-point deficit. A team that has looked lifeless most of this season, and even in the first half of this basketball game, pulled off the improbable comeback win behind their star. Yeah, he's back. 34 points, 6 rebounds, 8 assists for Ja. Most importantly, 1 game-winning shot at the buzzer as the Grizzlies come back to win by 2. If you are like me and love flexing your NBA knowledge, you should head over to the best place to play fantasy sports. That's Underdog Fantasy. For me, I love the pick'em game. It's super simple to play too. All you gotta do is go to the Underdog Fantasy website or app, pick whether a player will have a higher or lower stat line for that game, get all your picks right, and you can win up to 20 times your money. And when you sign up, if you use my code FERRO, your deposit will get doubled. You can't beat that. Again, head over to today's sponsor, Underdog Fantasy's website or app, use my code FERRO, and your first deposit will get doubled. Victor Wembanyama out for the Spurs matchup against this guy, Damian Lillard and the Milwaukee Bucks. Look, San Antonio's not a good team with Wembanyama, and they're a really bad team without him. Damian Lillard surpasses 20,000 points in his NBA career, becomes the 51st person in NBA history to accomplish such a feat. This is all a part of a 19-point opening frame for Lillard. Trust and believe his night was just getting started. Giannis, the point guard, his night was just getting started. The Spurs are already down 16. Zach Collins nails a 3, trying to cut into this deficit, but too many easy buckets. Bad Spurs defense. Giannis open for the easiest dunk you'll ever see him make. Then back to the Dame stretch. Lillard extending the Bucks lead to 16 once again. Third quarter, Keldon Johnson, an easy bucket. He had 28 points, 12 boards. But when you're not playing defense, it's very hard to catch up in basketball games. Giannis finds Lopez inside, and then Giannis finds Dame outside. The Greek freak really in his bag now. If none of my teammates are missing shots, I'm just going to continue to pass with the ball. How about Giannis? A career-high 16 assists. None prettier than this dime to Bobby Portis, who finishes. Look at Giannis point guard Giannis finding Portis, who had 23 points off that Milwaukee Bucks bench. This game is a rout. Now we're just trying to see if Dame's going to score 40 or not, and he does. First time he scored 40 as a Milwaukee Buck. Got to 39 a couple times, but this is his first 40 piece as the Bucks roll past the Spurs 132-119, and take my word for it, it wasn't that close. Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and the Phoenix Suns involved in one of those games that you kind of scratch your head how you lost. First half, everything going in favor of the team in purple because their dynamic duo was on another level. Durant, outlet pass finds Booker, easy jam. Now KD keeping it himself and scoring it himself. Durant wasn't done. No. When you game that nice, you probably should do it twice. Durant beats the first quarter buzzer. Phoenix already up double digits and counting. Booker in the second, getting to his spot and showing you that he's got the wicked jump shot. It's a 13-point lead in favor of Phoenix. Blazers trying to make a run, but Durant says, KD goes 16 and 28 from the field. He had a 40 piece. And then everything just falls apart for the Suns in the third quarter. Specifically, they just kind of stopped playing defense. Jeremy Grant, Malcolm Brogdon, Anthony Simons all nailed three-pointers to help the Blazers get back into this ball game and actually take it over. Simons just wide open. There's nobody 4 or 5 feet around him. Now, a more contested three, but at this point, Anthony Simons and the Blazers are feeling it. They ain't missing nothing. They're up 9 now in the fourth. Simons, a little don't mind if I do, finally a mid-range jump shot. Grant looking and finding Brogdon. I mean, if y'all not gonna guard him, I guess I might as well just shoot threes. Jeremy Grant had 22 points. Anthony Simons had 23 points and 7 dimes, despite a great first half from KD and Devin Book. The Suns are on the losing end of a 109-104 game to the Blazers. It feels like it's always going down to the wire when Golden State and Boston link up. These two got recent history, played in the NBA Finals just a couple years ago. Now they're in San Francisco for a regular season matchup. First quarter, it's Jason Tatum with the steal and the easy deuce. But Tatum's night would get suspended for a few minutes as Tatum, as you see, rolls that ankle. He would leave the game and return in the second quarter. While he was gone, Curry does things that only Curry can do. Nailing three-pointers, starting a new streak, by the way, of three-pointers made in consecutive games. Derek White wasn't too shabby in this one. How about 30 points from D. White? The story of this basketball game, though, was Jaylen Brown putting relentless pressure on Curry, who actually picks up his 5th foul in the third quarter. He has to go to the bench. D. White is still on the court, balling out. The Celtics got a 15-point lead. Curry will return to the game, and let's just say he's done fouling. Curry upset at himself for putting his team in this position and starts doing the Curry thing, nailing threes just like that. The Celtics only lead by a point. Klay Thompson has been feeling it of late. That 3 ties this game up at 118. Don't leave me open. Derek White gets a look, puts the Boston Celtics back up by 3. Not to be outdone, Curry's got Al Horford on an island. And let's just say that island's named Curry. We're tied up at 121. Last seconds of regulation. It's Tatum, who again, with the injury, just didn't have the rhythm in this one. Celtics ran most of their stuff through Brown and White, but it's Tatum still taking the late shot, and he misses. Curry was not missing in OT. He goes and 1. Celtics now need a bucket. Al Horford delivers. We got a 1-point game. But when it's winning time, CP3 finds Steph Curry for the dagger three-pointer. It is time to put the Boston Celtics to sleep because Steph Curry said so. Despite the foul trouble, Curry drops 33 points and 6 assists. The Warriors come back to win by 6. Welcome to the latest episode of the Who's FERRO podcast. I am yours truly, the one and only. I'm the one they call FERRO. Thank y'all so much for the love and support y'all been showing me. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we're pretty much exclusively talking Grizzlies v Pelicans. I'm sorry, but when you come back in legendary fashion like Ja Morant did against the Pelicans, we're going to talk about you pretty much exclusively on this episode of the Who's FERRO podcast. Real quick, though, I wanted to recap my night with Underdog Fantasy, the sponsor for today's video. As you can see, I went 50% from the field. I had 2 dubs, 2 L's. Steph Curry did me right against the Celtics. He has not been the greatest of scorer of late, and it actually ended up with 33 points against the Celtics, but struggled most of that basketball game. I went higher on his assists, and then Jaylen Brown always does me right against the Golden State Warriors. He plays really well against them. I went higher on his points, rebound, assists. I caught that dub. We had a give me dub with Ja Morant going higher on half a point. Obviously, he did that and then some. And then CJ McCollum is one of my safe picks that I always usually utilize. I went higher on his point production, which was 17 and a half. He pretty much did that in the first half. I think he had 15 by half. My 2 L's, Steph pretty much couldn't buy a 3 most of that Celtics-Warriors game. He was in foul trouble, but he gets hot late, and unfortunately, he goes higher than the 5 threes that I picked him to go lower on. I actually had that one set up well because I had Giannis going lower than 33 and a half. He didn't have to do much of the scoring because Dan was great. And then my last L, I am never in my life going Jeremy Grant higher on rebounds ever again. This guy, at his big old height of 6'9", 6'10", just does not want to rebound the basketball. And it sucks, too, because Kevin Durant went higher on 29 and a half for me. It is what it is, though. I'll take the 2 dubs.
With a chance to win it in his return. Here goes Morant. He spins. Morant scores! And the timer expires. Count the basket. And Ja Morant wins it for the Grizzlies. Show-stopping performance by Ja Morant.
I have never in my life seen anything like what Ja Morant just did in his first game of the season against the New Orleans Pelicans. Let's keep in mind, the Grizzlies get down 24 points. The Pelicans are making all of their threes. They go into the locker room with a 19-point lead over the Grizzlies. Memphis comes out in the second half. It's almost like they needed one half to throw away the first 25 games of the season. They come out just like the team that had been a top 2 seed out west the last couple years. Ja Morant puts the team on his back. He not only has an incredible second half, his first game of the season with 34, 8, and 6. Late in the game, Ja Morant puts it out in the atmosphere, lets everybody know, now I'm back for real, takes over the headlines in the NBA for the night. Give me the damn ball late. I'm going to not only score the game winner at the buzzer, I'm going to do it against the guy that went ahead of me, number 1 in the draft, in his building. Ja Morant let everybody know not only is 12 coming, 12 is back. I have never seen anything like it in my life of watching basketball. I am only 29 years of age, but y'all know your boy's history. I've been watching basketball since I was 5 years old. And I'm talking about a lot of basketball. All right, I'm obviously partnered up with the NBA. I'm partnered up with, other brands as well, in which I covered basketball. It was my number 1 job. It's covering basketball night in, night out of the NBA season. I've been doing it for years now. I have never in my life seen a return like what Ja just pulled off. It had dramatics. It had anticipation. It delivered with late game heroics. I ain't never seen nothing like that in NBA. Not the first game back. Now, we've had special moments from guys throughout the history of the NBA. We've had guys have great return months, great return seasons, great finishes to careers after crazy injuries. We've seen guys return and be the same version, if not better. We've seen all that. But the first game back, cold off the shelf, following a 25-game suspension, after you did something dumb last offseason and cost your team the first 25 games of the season. The Grizzlies have been a wreck without Ja. For him to come back and say, we good, y'all. I'm back now. Unreal, legendary. That's why people will buy into the Ja Morant, the train of his. That's why he's going to always have an immense fan base. America loves a good rebound story, and Ja Morant just kicked off one hell of a start to his. Now, speaking of the Memphis Grizzlies, my hometown, the question remains, have they dug themselves in too deep a hole? Yes, what Ja did was fantastic. Y'all know what I think about it. I just gave it to you in a 3-minute soliloquy. But the Grizzlies are 7-19. Have they dug themselves in too big of a hole? I'm going to answer that question as somebody that picked Memphis to get to the Western Conference Finals this year, knowing that Ja was suspended. I don't think it's too late. I'm looking at the Western Conference, ladies and gentlemen. The Minnesota Timberwolves are for sure number one. The Thunder are doing really well as well. But outside of that, look around 7, 8, 9, 10 out west. I mean, these teams are hovering around 10, 11 losses. The Grizzlies are at 19 losses. They don't have a lot of room to be bad. They're going to probably have to win 70% of their games for like the next couple months to even be somewhere considerable by All-Star Weekend. But if you look at just that emotion, not only from Ja Morant, but from that team, look, I bet you, in the next couple of days, all of a sudden, you're going to hear a story about Marcus Smart all of a sudden getting close to returning from his injury, because guys want to play with that. That's exciting. It's something refreshing. It gets that bad stench what had been the Grizzlies season thus far, and it had been a bad stench. Listen, I don't want to sugarcoat nothing, and I think it culminated with one of the most embarrassing moments in Memphis Grizzlies franchise history last week with Dylan Brooks walking into Memphis and nailing that clutch three-pointer and literally screaming, that's why they paid me $80 million. Y'all know I'm somebody that believes the Memphis Grizzlies made a mistake, not by not re-signing Dylan Brooks, but by the way they went about it, by putting it out there however they wanted to put it out there to reporters, to the media. Yo, we're done with Dylan. Even before free agency started, I thought that was a bad look. I thought it was embarrassing that Dylan came into Memphis and nailed that dagger three-pointer. It had been a bad stench on the Grizzlies thus far this season. Ja Morant in one 48-minute game wiped that stench out. And I believe the season, just like that first 25 games, is still fixable. I think it's still salvageable because the Western Conference is so competitive. Nobody's running away with that thing. And one thing I know about the Grizzlies under the Ja Morant era, they walk in your trap and take over your trap. They're not going to lose too many games as long as most of their key guys are healthy. Now, they do need to go out and address their rotation. It's not great outside of the key pieces, obviously the Jaws, the Jarens, the Desmond Baines, one of my favorite players in the league. They need to go out and address some pieces. I have not liked what I've seen. You know, I saw that they just let go Kenny Lofton. Whatever. I didn't really get that one. I don't know why you would let that go. I don't understand that one. A couple other rotational players. Obviously, they're dealing with injuries with Brandon Clark and, you know, Steven Adams pretty much done for the year. I like what I saw from Memphis, though, and I do believe they got enough time. I mean, if this would have been a 40-game suspension, 35-game suspension, I probably wouldn't even be here. Matter of fact, if it's a 32-game suspension, I say the season is over. But because it's 25, Memphis was able to win a few games without Ja. I think it's enough there to be salvageable because nobody's running away with the Western Conference spots 3 through 10, which gets you in the playoff tournament if you're between 7 and 10.
With the steal, Najee Marshall, and Zion with the highlight.
One thing that I did want to discuss, though, in the midst of Ja Morant's greatness against the New Orleans Pelicans, was the fact that he was going against Zion. And because of injuries, because of other stuff, we have not gotten as many Ja versus Zion matchups thus far in their career like we would have expected with these two dudes going number one, number two, the South Carolina thing there. We haven't gotten as many matchups as we thought we would have gotten. Most of it's been on Zion. Ja's been pretty healthy, all things considered. You know, in the midst of Ja going crazy, Zion Williamson only had 13 points against the Grizzlies. And I do believe, you know, Shaq and Chuck, they've been very hard on Zion this year. He has not been bad as they say he's been, but he definitely hadn't been great. And as Ja Morant the guy that you got drafted over is going crazy, Zion had no impact on that game. And if you watch the Pelicans play, that team is no longer just about Zion. It could be one of like 5 guys on any given night for New Orleans. But it should be Zion number 1, and then everybody else just kind of fits in every few nights. I don't know what's going on with Zion. I'm starting to question if bruh loves the game as much as other players love the game. But it is something to monitor as Ja's going crazy. Zion and the Pelicans just kind of allowed him to have that moment.
Oh, Paul gathers it in. Pocket 3. Curry 3. Oh,
Oh, there's the meme.
what a shot.
You know, Shaq recently said something on Inside the NBA about Steph Curry. He said, yo, I'm wondering, is it time for us to start putting Steph in the greatest player of all time conversation? Shaq even went as far as to say Steph is better than he ever was. And that's super intriguing to me because Shaq's one of the greatest players of all time to me. But when we talk about Steph Curry, it is kind of funny how we do him. We love saying he's the greatest shooter of all time, but it's kind of a cop-out answer in a way because that allows us not to include him in the conversations with the Mikes, with the LeBrons. I'm going to always put Kobe in those conversations. I think a lot of it's because he lacks the defensive resume as some of the other all-time greats. But at what point are we going to say, okay, yes, Steph wasn't a great defender, but for damn near 20 years straight, he was one of the 5 greatest offensive players. At what point does Steph's name now joins the greatest of all time conversation is the question that Shaq got, and to a lesser degree, I think I got. Please let me know your thoughts on that one and Ja Morant's incredible return in the comment section below. I want to thank y'all so much for tapping into another episode of the Who's Fair podcast. I appreciate your time. I'm appreciative of your love, and I greatly appreciate your support, all right? It's what your boy will never take for granted. Get them picks in, Underdog Fantasy. Use code FERRO, all right? You got to use the code FERRO so your boy can get the love because you showed that to me. Time, love, support is what your boy will never take for granted. Salute. 12 back. I'm out.
I want to salute you, homie, you know, for building your own thing and doing your own thing.
Why build theirs when I believe I can build my own?
You've already done it, or I wouldn't be here.
I'm already the only elite sports and music journalist in the game today. My goal is simple, to be the best there's ever been. So, please don't go. Make sure you subscribe and follow the journey. It truly means everything to me. I tell stories. I talk music. I cover sports. I am culture. I am FERRO.